Welcome back to the channel, you card nerds. We've got another mock check ride. We're trying to get some more instrument. We're trying to get some more commercial. Definitely trying to look for some CFI applicants, trying to get some mock check rides done. But here's another private pilot mock check ride in the beloved Cessna 172K. I've flown a Cessna 172K. To be honest, most Cessna 172s are the exact same airplane, except for like the November and the mic models. The Novembers, you can't slip with flaps. The mics, I think, are rated to do mild aerobatics, but don't quote me on that. Definitely go read your POH. But let's get into this student. This student actually did pretty dang good. They showed up incredibly prepared with everything that they emailed me before the mock check ride. They showed up insanely prepared, which is refreshing. The amount of mock check rides and stage checks that I've done where a student has absolutely no idea what's going on, they're lost in the sauce, they haven't completed their nav log, they haven't read through the ACS, they don't have their documents in order, they haven't totaled up their logbook, all of these things that you definitely need to have done before you go in for your check ride. Now, I understand we're doing mock check rides here, so if you don't have those things ready, it's not the end of the world. We can still go over it. We can still freshen up on some stuff. But this student was so well prepared and did so well that this is actually one of the shortest mock check rides that I have done yet. So let's hear a little message from our sponsor, and then we'll get into the mock check ride. Let's face it, a good aviation headset is a game changer. But if you've ever felt the need to take out a mortgage just to get your hands on a quality headset, well, have I got some news for you. This video is actually sponsored by Airplace, the place where you can rent top-of-the-line aviation headsets without draining your flight training budget. For less than the cost of an hour in the sky, you'll get a high-quality, noise-canceling headset with no giant upfront cost, no sweaty, used gear, just a fresh, comfy fit every time you fly. Whether you're a student pilot trying to save a few bucks or an old pro who just wants to try out the latest tech without the commitment, Airplace has got you covered. Plus, with their flexible rental plans, you can rent for a month, a year, or however long you need to make the decision on whether or not you're going to buy or continue to rent. And when you decide you are done with the headset, there is always free shipping back and forth from Airplace. So why break the bank for something you might only use a few times a month? Check out airplaceusa.com and get a high quality sound without the high price tag. Trust me, your ears and your wallet will thank you. So now I gotta ask, now that we got this thing recording, are you okay with me recording this mock check ride to use for content creation, whether it be on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, etc.?
Yep, I'm good.
Awesome. So we're gonna be doing a mock check ride in a Cessna 172K out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about, what got you to this point, how many hours you're at. I'm looking through some of the stuff that you sent me, and you definitely seem prepared. So
yes, my instructor has got me all prepared. Just make sure, on day one, or when you get to the exam day, it's all set in stone. But I have, I think, 52 hours altogether, 52 or 53, somewhere around there.
Okay, yeah, that's actually pretty good. The average, I think, last I checked, was about 73 hours. So if you're ready for the check ride at about 50 and change, that's awesome, right? That is okay. So congrats on that. It took me 117. So
yeah, I watched several of your videos, man.
Awesome.
Several.
Well, so you must know the whole script by now. For every check ride, there's 3 possible outcomes. There's satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory just means that you're consistently within the standards. Doesn't necessarily mean that you don't momentarily fall outside the standards. It means that if you do fall outside the standards, you apply a prompt and appropriate correction to get yourself back within the standards. It also means you're willing to look stuff up if you don't know the answer.
Right? Gotcha. Yep.
I know you see in some of the comments on some of the videos, people saying like, oh, they looked too much stuff up. Well, I would much rather somebody be willing to look something up, admit that they don't know it, and then look it up and know how to look it up than just guess. But then we've got unsatisfactory. This really just means that you're a danger to national airspace system. The examiner has to take control of the aircraft. You have to look up literally everything, stuff like that. And then there's incomplete. Incomplete just means that you ran out of time. The aircraft wasn't airworthy. Somebody got sick. weather didn't agree, right?
Right, yeah.
Last thing before move on to any questions is, have you read through the Airman Certification Standards? You understand the standards that you're being held to?
I do.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So what documents are you going to need to bring to an actual check ride?
So I would need my government issue ID, my medical certification, pilot or student pilot certification, and my logbook.
Awesome. Your logbook's going to have a lot of stuff in it, right? It's going to be full
Right,
of
all
your
the endorsements.
all your endorsements and the time to show that you are actually qualified to take this check ride.
Right.
I like it when students tab out their logbook, showing me exactly when they met all of the requirements, so I don't have to flip through the whole thing just to make sure. But you do you.
Quick question on that. I don't have my logbook tabbed out, but that paper I think I sent you, can I use that in place? So at least I can give that to the DPA. Hey, this is all the requirements according to that. I forgot the number on top.
Yeah, so I saw that. Let me go back to that. Yeah, then 61109, you have that, the total time logs completed when you got it done. I mean, bring your logbook too, as opposed to tabbing it out. I actually,
Well, I'll bring the logbook. Just I don't have it tabbed out currently. If it's needed, I can also do that along with that paper.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is gorgeous. This actually, I like this a lot more than tabbing out your logbook. When do you eventually plan on getting to the airlines? Is that your end goal?
No.
No.
I'm just doing it for personal.
Oh, awesome. Well, maybe I'll see you flying around one day.
It was a dream at one point, but family time is more important to me than being away.
Oh, well, being an airline pilot isn't the only career as a pilot. You could be a flight instructor. I had a buddy. We all went to flight training together, and he stayed because he wasn't old enough to have an ATP certificate, and he ended up making more money than us and having more free time because he stayed as a flight instructor. And all of us were looking back at him like, this sucks.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
So I like to dig into systems right off the bat, just because, we want to make sure that you know and understand your airplane. Now, this is a 1969 172A. The POH is 34 pages.
Correct. Not much for you to dig on.
Yeah, there's not really a whole lot to dig on.
But I was going to ask you, if there is something that's not even in my POH, go ahead and ask me. So that way I understand or other questions that could still, the DPA may ask me out of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and most DVEs like to stick within the airplane that you're training in, unless it's like kind of general aviation stuff, like the difference between fuel injected and carbureted.
Gotcha.
Is a lot of stuff that the DPE is going to dig into. More of it's going to be, do you as a pilot know what you're doing?
Makes sense.
Right. So what can you tell me about the engine, the power plant that's in this aircraft?
So it's a Lycoming 4-cylinder, horizontally opposed, naturally aspirated, air cooled. It has carburetor also in there, 150 horsepower. The engine size is 0320.
Awesome. What does that 320 mean?
I believe it's the size of the cylinder size.
So it's how much volume of air,
feet, I guess.
Well, it's how much, it's cubic inches. It's how much volume of air will move through the engine in one full rotation.
I got you. Okay.
All right. Now you said it's carbureted. What are some of the big downsides of a carbureted airplane?
Main thing is carb icing and also poor performance.
Yep, carb icing, poor performance. Does yours actually have a carburetor temperature gauge?
I do not have one.
You do not have one. Okay. So you said big concern is carburetor icing. How would you identify carburetor icing?
Gradual loss in RPM. And then, you would notice that, hey, something's wrong with the power.
Okay. Now, what are you going to do to fix that? Is there a way to fix it?
You can apply carb icing, or you can, if you are at a higher altitude, you can also drop down to warmer air.
Okay. You can apply carb heat.
Sorry, carb heat.
Yep.
Yes.
You are the environment is applying carb icing.
Yes. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Just want to make sure. Now, is it going to get better immediately once you apply that carburetor heat?
No, it's going to be a little bit rough before it gets better.
It could be really rough, right? Why is it going to get rough?
The ice will melt and the carburetor, which will go into the engine, which is turning into water. So that's why.
Yeah, and as much as we would like it, airplanes don't run on water.
Right.
It'd be real nice if they did. All right.
Very cheap.
Yeah, right. Just go to the faucet. We'll be good. Now let's say you turned on that carburetor heat, right? You melted away the ice. When are you going to turn the carburetor heat off, if at all?
If the RPM seems to be coming back a little bit, you can push in, not all the way, but let's say halfway in. And if the RPM is coming back, then you can push all the way back in the carb heat.
So here's the thing. If it froze up in these conditions, it's very likely going to freeze up again.
That's true.
Right? We didn't all of a sudden get warmer. This airplane's not fast enough for us to get to warmer temperature that quick, right? If it froze up once, it's probably going to freeze up again. That's where people get themselves in trouble, is by applying half carb heat. Because it's enough for it to like melt the ice, and then it flows back into the carburetor and then freezes again.
Gotcha.
As opposed to staying hot all the way back into the engine.
Makes sense.
And then they end up choking the engine. So it's full or none. I'm not going to, me personally, I'm not going to turn that carburetor heat off until I am on the ground.
Okay.
Right? Where does that heat come from?
It's around the exhaust system. Or
okay.
Manifold, I think.
Yeah, it's around the exhaust manifold. Is there anything else that's heated from the exhaust manifold, Trout?
The cabin heat.
Yeah, the cabin heat. So if I had like a cracked exhaust manifold, what might happen if I use my my cabin heat?
You could get carbon monoxide poisoning.
Okay, and is that a type of hypoxia?
Yes, it's a hypemic hypoxia.
It is hypemic hypoxia. So what are you going to do for hypemic hypoxia? How are you going to alleviate that problem?
Well, if it is carbon monoxide, then I'll, of course, turn off the carb heat, first of all, and open the windows. And if there are any passenger or by myself, then, of course, get to lower altitude and also try to land as soon as possible.
Awesome. Now, when you say as soon as possible, what do you mean by that?
As soon as possible, it's not an life or death situation where you can still get down. You still have enough time. Versus when you have to land right away, then, it's a life or death situation. Hey, if I don't land, then, I could die.
Okay. So I usually refer to I'm going to die as land as soon as possible. Okay. I'm probably not going to die is land as soon as practical. Right. And the only reason I do that is because that's the language Cessna eventually uses in their POHs.
Okay.
Okay. So it just keeps the language, kind of the phraseology kind of standard. Your airplane doesn't really have a whole lot when it comes to emergency procedures. But I'm assuming you've got like a checklist that has an emergency procedures in it, right?
Right.
Okay. How much fuel does this thing actually carry?
So it holds 42 gallons and usable is 38.
So why is some of it unusable?
I believe that's, from what I understand, the fuel line that goes to the engine overall. It's above the bottom of the tanks, which, in case there's any water or debris that can settle on bottom of the tank so it doesn't flow into the engine.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, is that unusable fuel counted as part of your basic empty weight?
It is. Yes.
It is counted as part of your basic empty weight. What kind of gas can I put in this thing?
100 low lead.
Hey, is there any other kind of gas I can put in this thing?
According to POH, it does say 80/87, I believe.
Okay. It does. And I mean, you very likely can get an STC for this thing to use like pump gas. Go to Chevron and get a 5-gallon can.
I believe that would be cheaper.
It is.
Half the cost.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that do. I wish that my engine could get a MoGas STC, but nope. My engine is like one of the few Lycoming engines that cannot get a MoGas STC.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about STCs, do you know what an STC is?
Supplement type certification.
Okay, so what is it? What does it do? Like, why do I care about what a supplemental type certificate is?
It's mainly for an aftermarket product that's installed in the aircraft that did not come from the manufacturer.
Okay. Are there any STCs on your airplane?
There is the visor. It is, I believe, the GPS we have. It's not the Garmin, the fancy one of the old school ones. But yeah, we do have that one.
Okay, is it a 430 or is it 22? Is it about this big or is it about this big?
That second side.
Okay,
it's a small screen.
Okay, like orange lettering.
No, it's got blue.
Oh, trying to remember what that one is. I'd definitely go read the supplement for it just to make sure you understand how to use it. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but any equipment that is installed in the aircraft and operable is kind of fair game as part of the check ride.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I'm pretty happy with when it comes to the engine. Now, we've got an alternator on this airplane, right?
Yes.
Now, what else can you tell me about the electrical system?
So it's a 14-volt alternator, 12-volt battery.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
14-volt alternator, 12-volt battery. Yeah, there's not a
60 amps. 60 amps.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on. Now, if I saw do you have an ammeter or an overvoltage light?
I believe it's an amp meter.
All right, so you've got an amp meter.
Gauge.
Now, if you saw that thing reading 0, what would that mean to you? Or not necessarily 0, less than 0. What would that mean to you?
Could be a faulty alternator. It's not supplying the battery enough power, I guess. Not generating electric power.
So a negative ammeter isn't necessarily showing. It's not showing you what the alternator is doing. It is showing you that the battery is discharging. Okay. So your alternator could be functioning. You're just drawing too much amperage for it to keep up. Right.
Gotcha.
I know it seems a little semantic, but it's a better understanding of what your system is actually doing. Because if I saw a negative on my alternator or negative on my ammeter and I turned something off and I saw it pop up back to 0 or positive, then I know my alternator still works. There's just something drawing too much, or my alternator might be failing, but it hasn't failed completely just yet.
Gotcha.
What might I do if I saw that a negative on my ammeter?
Like you said, turn off some of the parts and see if it goes back up. Then, of course, leave some of those non-important items off. Okay.
And so let's say I turned stuff off. It never came back up. I'm showing about a -10 on my ammeter. You got a rough idea on how long we might be able to continue to fly with our avionics?
It's a 60 amp on there, the electrical system, but I'm not sure how long it runs. Maybe 30 minutes. Yeah,
so 30 minutes is always a good rule of thumb when it comes to an airplane without an alternator. It's about 30 minutes. That 60 amps is what your alternator can put out. That 60 amps isn't what your battery is rated for. Your battery, given it's a 172, it probably has a 17 amp hour battery, meaning that if I pull 17 amps from it, it will last 1 hour.
Right. Okay.
Right. But that is a brand new battery.
Okay.
I'm assuming we don't have a brand new battery.
I don't think so.
All right. So good rule of thumb is don't expect anything greater than 30 minutes. So if you did have that alternator failure, what are you going to do? Are you going to land at an airport with no services? Are you going to continue on trying to get home? Like, what's your plan?
I would try to reset it first.
Awesome.
And see if that would bring it back up or not. If it doesn't, then I would land as soon as practical, at a closest airport.
Closest airport with what?
That has service.
That has service, right? I'm not going to land at Podunk nowhere, you know, and
I'll be stuck there anyway.
yeah, buddy comes out of the wood line missing most of his teeth. Like, you need help? Like, not from you. All right, awesome. So, pretty decent decision making when it comes to, where are we going to go? How are we going to get there in the event of an electrical failure, right? Because I'm not going to die. I'm not falling out of the sky. Is my engine going to stay running?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was going to say it's separate from the electrical system.
It is. What is keeping my engine running?
The 2 magnetos on there.
Okay, so what are magnetos?
Magnetos keeps the spark plugs, I guess, sparking, for a continuation of the engine operation.
Yep. So as long as my engine is rotating, my magnetos are, as you said, sparking. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm trying to find like limitations of this airplane. I'm scrolling through this POH, like I'm just looking for like a VNE. This thing is, you know what? I'm gonna have to share this real quick. Like, this is it. This is the whole POH.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, let's give me something to test and question on. And again, I'm not really seeing a whole lot. Now, what would you call an airspeed that you should never exceed in this aircraft?
The VNE, which is, I converted all the miles per hour to knots, just so it's easier for me to do all calculation, but it is 151 knots.
Yep, I'm seeing 151 knots. Now, is your
170 miles per hour in the POH maybe?
Yeah, so you said you converted it all over. Why is your POH, is your airplane in miles per hour? Or, because I'm seeing your POH is in miles per hour.
Correct.
So,
I believe the airspeed might be, I don't remember.
Okay, so is your airspeed indicator in miles per hour or knots?
So far in the training, we have always talked as knots.
Okay.
My instructor always said in knots.
Okay. I do see that you've got that fun little conversion sheet. Obviously, it seems like it's part of a little card that you bring with you in the airplane. So I'm happy with that, as long as, these, I'm looking at them. They seem pretty close. Let's talk about maneuvering speed for a bit. What is maneuvering speed?
The maximum maneuvering speed?
Yep. Like what is VA?
I guess from what I understand, you can deflect one controller without damaging the aircraft or airframe.
Okay. Now, is it above this speed or below this speed?
That is up to, I think, 106.
Yep.
106 knots.
So if I am below 106 knots, I can apply one full control deflection without risking damage to the aircraft.
Quick question on that. Now, I know it says you can do one control. Now, what if you turn left sharply and then turn right sharply? Would that damage in that case, right?
It can.
Okay.
Right. So there's no, if you really what it's getting at is that you can do this one thing. It's kind of showing you what your limit is. Now, if you don't go to full deflection and you don't go to full deflection the other way, you might be fine. But there's also a story of an American A300 that they were below their gust penetration and maneuvering speed for that aircraft. And they stomped on the rudder to full deflection 1.5 times and snapped the tail off.
Okay. It's scary.
It is scary, but that's kind of why we drill down maneuvering speed, or at least why I do it, because I saw that and I'm like, none of my students are doing dumb shit like that.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you, how does that exactly work, besides just one control fully deflected?
And that's the thing, is it's telling you what the limits are. So in that situation, in that A300 situation, they were trying to maintain coordination as they were fighting wake turbulence. So they were on the ailerons and the rudder to full deflection multiple times. Right. So if I quickly bank to the left coordinated to like 45 degrees of bank, but I'm not going to full deflection on any of the control surfaces, if I'm below maneuvering speed, I'm probably going to be fine. But if I stomp full left rudder and crank full left aileron trying to, avoid a tower because I wasn't paying attention, it's like, and I am below maneuvering speed, since I am on two controls, there is the risk of damage.
Okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
Now, certain airplanes will stall before damage if you're under maneuvering speed, but it has to specifically state that in the POH. Like a Cirrus specifically states that below its maneuvering speed, it will stall before damage. Your POH doesn't.
Yeah, not much in there, right?
No. It's not much in here at all. So what is the bottom of the white arc on your airspeed indicator? What is that telling you? If you were to hop into any airplane and you looked at the bottom of the white arc, what V speed would that be?
VSO.
That would be VSO. And what does VSO stand for?
It's a full landing configuration or dirty configuration. Full flaps.
What speed?
Oh, speed. I believe that is 43 knots.
It is 43 knots. Now, you're just saying it's my dirty configuration for what? You're saying VSO?
I guess that would be full flaps.
For stalling.
For stalling, yes.
Yep. You gotta finish
VSO.
the.
Okay.
Yeah, just finish the whole statement, right?
I got you.
Don't assume that the DPE is going to finish your thought.
I got you. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
They are not there to try and finish your thought or help you in any way. They are there to build scenarios in which you're supposed to provide answers to.
Okay.
Right. I know there's I've seen a lot of students get into check rides and the DPE will just sit there and stare at them and let them talk and talk and talk and talk and not stop them at all, no matter how wrong they are. Okay.
That's torture.
Yes. And a lot of students can't handle, they don't handle that well. The DPE just sitting there silently staring at them. Now let's get into a little bit of weight and balance. Can you define to me what basic empty weight is?
So it's the unusable fuel, also the oil, any equipment that was already installed from the manufacturer. That's included in there.
Awesome.
And I believe that's it.
Yep. Now, what is center of gravity?
Center of gravity kind of keeps your plane level without, nose up or nose down.
Okay, so when I talk about CG, when I talk about center of gravity, I'm asking define the term center of gravity. The way to define center of gravity is it's where the airplane would balance if I was to hang it from a string, and it is also where all the control inputs will move about. Okay, so where did my damn airplane go? Here, I'll use a duck. We're going to use a shark duck. So if I have a duck, right, or if I have an airplane and its center of gravity is way up here on the front of it, all the control movements are going to be about this point. But if I put my CG back here, all the control movements are going to be about this point. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right. So what are some of the benefits of having a forward CG? Not necessarily outside of limit, but having a CG that's, near my forward limit.
It would help you recover from a stall. That's one of the main ones.
Yeah, it ends up with a more stable airplane, right?
Yep.
What are some of the downsides?
It's hard to rotate, also longer landing roll as well. Also, it would be hard to flare when you're coming in landing.
Yep. I mean, you could end up with more back pressure. What happens to my cruise speed and my fuel burn with a forward CG?
I believe it decreases.
So my cruise speed will decrease. Yeah. What about my fuel burn?
Fuel burn also would be more since you have to apply more back pressure, which will use more fuel.
Well, it's increased drag.
Yeah.
The opposition of drag is what?
Mm-hmm.
The opposition of drag, what is that?
Rephrase that again.
What is the opposite of drag?
Thrust.
Thrust. And how do I generate thrust?
By power.
With power. And I generate power with squished up dinosaur go juice. Sorry. It's pretty solid. Have you ever heard the term datum in relation to center of gravity?
Yes, I have heard of it. I don't know the full meaning of it.
So datum is one of those ones it's a little hard to grasp because it is an imaginary line. All right. It is just the imaginary line where all your measurements when it comes to weight and balance are taken from. So when I say that like the front seat is a station of 76, it means 76 inches from the datum. The datum on this airplane, isn't it like the firewall?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember now.
Yep. Awesome. Like the datum on my airplane is 8 inches off of the nose. Why did they choose that? I have no idea. I think it's a really dumb datum, but it's a datum. Awesome. Given that there's not a whole lot for us to dig into on your airplane, I feel like we're pretty solid. Let's dig just generally into some emergencies, given that your airplane doesn't call out emergencies specifically. So what I'm just looking for is just good aeronautical decision making, a solid flow. Like, hey, these are the actions I am going to take. Not, hey, I might try this. Not wishy washy. Like, if this happens, X, Y, Z is going to happen.
Okay.
All right. So what are you going to do if you have an engine failure during your takeoff run? You have not left the ground. You're still on the ground.
I would pull back power and try to remain on the ground, and also pull back mixture to cut off the power on there, or fuel flowing to the engine.
Solid.
And apply brakes, of course, to slow down.
Yes, apply brakes. Right. Now, what's your course of action if you were to have an engine fire during start?
So I would continue cranking that engine, pull back the mixture to completely lean, and also turn off the fuel selector valve to off. So it would deplete all the fuel, going into the engine.
Awesome. Well, let's say the engine started, but it still caught fire. Are you going to do the same thing?
I would do the same thing, still cut it off all the fuel possible.
Okay. Newer Cessnas, if the engine starts, they tell you to just crank it up to 1800 RPM and let it sit there to try and suck the fire into the engine because that's where it belongs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. And an engine at 1800 RPM is going to do a better job at that than a starter cranking it at like 700 RPM. Okay. Right. If the fire still doesn't go out, then continue on with the other actions. Now, shutting the mixture off, continuing to crank, and then getting out of the airplane, even if it does start, isn't going to kill you. So I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm just saying what the new Cessnas are saying to do.
I got you.
All right. Now, what about an engine failure in cruise? What's your plan?
So first, I remember ABCs. Get my airspeed to glide slope, which is 70 knots. Then also look for a best place to land. And once I do that, I also cut off the mixture to lean, pull back the power to idle, and also cut off fuel so it doesn't cause more fire. And just trying to land as best as possible. And if I have enough time, also call ATC on 121.5. And also Squawk 7700.
Awesome. So
call Mayday.
So there's some squawk codes that are associated with emergencies. So 7700, that's just for general emergency, right?
Correct.
All right. So what are the other squawk codes that are associated with emergencies?
Hijack 7500.
Okay.
and radio communication or radio failure, which is 7600.
Awesome. Um, let's talk about, let's say that we're cruising along and the visibility starts to kind of creep down on you. Maybe some cloud layers moving in. It's a little foggy down beneath you, but you find a little pocket to kind of squeeze yourself into. And you keep cruising on, and you eventually realize that fog layer now turned into a really low cloud layer, and now you are just stuck between layers. What are you going to do?
I would try to, well, first of all, I'll look at my direction where I'm going. Since I have already passed the fog that I was already going into, I knew about it. So even going back wouldn't do too much help. I would climb and then also contact ATC, confess, comply, and ask them for help. Say, hey, I'm a VFR pilot stuck into an IFR condition. Can I get a vector out to a VFR area?
Okay. I'd usually go with the turning around above climbing. Because if it's IFR above you, who's above you? I don't know.
Yeah, I know you don't know.
Exactly. And you don't want to climb into them. Right. Especially if there's like an airliner up there. I don't know how busy the airspace is around you, but it's very likely an airliner could be above me, coming out of Green Bay or Appleton or something. Last I want to do is climb up into their wake turbulence. Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
I understand the idea behind climbing. You're trying to get away from obstacles. Was there any obstacles behind you?
I didn't notice it, so no.
Yeah, you didn't hit it, so no.
Make a 180 turn or a standard 1 minute 180 turn.
Yep. So turning around and staying at that altitude would be definitely be my course of action. And you're right. Contact ATC. Confess that you got yourself in trouble. Ask for help. I usually tell students to remember the phrase, ATC, Cessna 123, VFR pilot in IFR conditions, request vectors to the nearest VFR airport.
Okay.
Right. Because, you've gotten how many hours of instrument training?
Just the bare minimum.
Yeah. 3 hours. So trying to figure out exactly what to say when you're going like, shit, I'm going to die. I don't know how to fly in the clouds. Right. Because even when I was instrument rated, the first time I was actually in the clouds in a 6-pack, I was like, I'm going to die today. Today's the day. So having that little phrase memorized so that you don't really have to think through it, it's going to take a lot of stress off of your back. If you ever end up in that situation. Now, let's say you end up in this situation, right? You turned around and now there's a little bit of rain behind you. But the fog beneath you has cleared up. As you punch into this rain, you start to notice a little bit of ice build up on your window and on your tires. What are you going to do?
I can also do the windshield de-icing.
Okay.
It's not that effective, but just to help whatever it can. Also drop in altitude.
Awesome.
For a warmer air.
Right. Carb heat.
And carb heat, yeah.
Yep, carb heat. Do you have pitot heat?
I do,
yep. So get all your heat. All the heat on. Window heat, cabin heat, pitot heat, carb heat. Turn all your heat on if you ever end up in what you might suspect as icing conditions.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Pretty solid when it comes to emergencies. I know there isn't there's not a whole lot called out specifically by your POH. I definitely prefer that they have changed that there are actual emergency procedures in these POHs now. Because checklists, let's be honest, checklists save lives. But that you've got, your 34 pages of POH down pretty solid. Let's dig into your, I know you sent me a cross-country route. There it is.
Yeah, sorry. It was late last night too.
No,
the busy work scheduled.
You are fine. You are fine. I know everybody's got their own things going on. If you end up needing to delay a check ride because you're working on something, do so. Right? Don't let the DPE force you into a check ride that you are not ready for. Remember, it's your check ride to fail, not their check ride to fail you on.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got your nav log right here. So I see an altitude 4,500. You're starting out at 4,500. Oh, damn. Does your POH have a? I don't think it does.
I don't think it has any of the information for me to calculate properly. So for that reason, if you look on the right, I added additional 6 minutes and 2 gallons of fuel for the taxi and climb, which
I do
is
see that.
Also calculated within the total there.
Awesome.
It's like a rough idea.
Yeah.
Not exact.
Yeah, and I completely get that. I know, again, the new ones, they have a time, fuel, and distance to climb chart. So what airspeed are we going to plan for during our climb? Because I'm seeing a ground speed of 84. I'm seeing a planned true airspeed of 94.
During the climb, VY, which is 71.
71.
Or 70, yeah.
Now, what's your other climb speed that you could use?
VX, if it's a 50-foot obstacle, which is 60 knots.
Okay. So I know you said 50-foot obstacle, but what's really the point of VX? What is the difference between VX and VY?
VX is the rate of climb, and VY is VX is angle of climb, and then VY is the rate of climb, which gives you the best altitude.
Altitude over time. VY is altitude over time. VX is altitude over miles.
Yep.
All right, so we're going from KEKX to KMEM. Let's head on over to Sky Vector. I like your route. I punched a couple of these numbers into a calculator to make sure that they're right. And I mean, everything I've calculated is right. I do like how you actually adjusted your winds as you went along, as opposed to just kind of taking one and, rolling with it. A lot of students will be like, my winds aloft at my departure is 260 at 14. It must be that my entire way. Then they get halfway through their route. Go ahead.
All the practice ones I've done, even other mock check rides like locally at the airport, they've given me to fly to a reasonably close airports. So then I keep the same winds and everything. But being this, possibly I might get this exact route to navigate to. So that's why I wanted to make sure whichever biggest airports are close by, I use those winds, along my route.
Oh, I see what you got there. You went through Russell Airport on the right and it changed. And then you went through Humphrey Airport, and that is a solid way to get your winds aloft.
So I use Louisville, which is the closest airport here, then Nashville, which is closest on the route there, and then when I get close to the destination, I use Memphis information.
That is solid. That is solid. I love it. I even see how you wrote down here in your notes, added 6 minutes for takeoff and climb, convert from miles per hour to knots. That is, these notes are solid. Let's go look at the sectional and I'm going to double check these points, just make sure that they're airports. So I'm assuming you'd be able to see them.
Yes. I was trying to do not exactly all of them over the airports, kind of side of the airport, so it's easy to see.
And it was KEKX and
KMEM.
Memphis International. 262 nautical miles in this Cessna. That is a journey.
Yeah. 3-hour journey.
Oh God, I want nothing to do with that. All right, so we're departing out of here. Pretty solid. What's this little flag right here?
It's the VFR reporting point to ATC.
Solid. And then we've got this airport off to the side. Solid waypoint.
I went south a little bit there.
Okay, down to Russellville?
Bowling Green.
Oh,
right above
Bowling Green. Yeah. All right. So that gives us a good opportunity to talk about this airspace. What airspace is this around Bowling Green?
Class Echo all the way to the ground.
All right. And what does it go up to?
17,999.
17,999. Let's talk about Bowling Green for a second. What's the field elevation here?
547.
All right. What's roughly the longest runway?
6,500 feet.
All right. What does this little star right here mean?
It's part-time lighting and also, I guess, pilot control lighting.
Hey, really means there's something in the chart supplement about the lighting there. 99.99% of the time, it's pilot controlled lighting.
Okay.
All right. Then you went, what, Russellville was the next one?
Correct. Yep. Right.
All right.
Past that.
Pretty solid point. Wouldn't argue with that. And Robertson, did you go south again?
Towards Springfield, trying to avoid that airspace there.
Okay. What airspace is that?
I can't really see fully. Yeah, it's an alert area.
Okay. And you've even got this one right here. What's this one?
That is restricted area, so you can't fly into that.
I cannot fly into that. Let's say I wanted to fly through this alert area. Who might I want to talk to?
The controlling agency.
Okay. And where do I find that information?
Usually you can
like I'm looking at a sectional.
Sometimes it's on the top of the VOR box, I guess.
So I'm looking at a sectional right here.
Yeah, it's on the left side of that area.
Oh, right. Over here? What was the alert area called?
Hold on. Let me pull it up. It is A-371.
Awesome. It says it goes up to 2,000.
Up to 2,000?
Yep,
okay, so
right
we can
there.
fly over that.
Yeah. So I definitely take a look at that, right? Because if you came down here and said, hey, I came down here purely to avoid the alert area, I might just leave that part out. Because I mean, there's nothing, you're technically not in it at your cruise, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
The second reason I kind of picked my points closer to the airport is in case there is an emergency, I have somewhere to land easily. And all of those, so far, what I've noticed are airports that have services.
Yes. And that's a solid way to navigate flying over or near airports that have services, somewhere where you can go in the event that something goes wrong. Solid choices. What is this little airspace right here? The blue line with the dots.
Wildering, I think.
Yeah, it's a wilderness area.
Yeah, wildlife.
Is there any restrictions associated with this?
I guess it's more of a recommendation to stay 2,000 feet above those areas.
Okay.
When you fly over.
99% of them are just going to be the request to stay 2,000 feet above. Just make sure that if you do see them, make sure you look for any kind of boxes because some of them have restrictions.
It does. Okay.
All right. That one pretty much tells seaplanes to pound sand, stay away, which sucks because it's a bunch of islands and calm water. Nope, there's the route. All right. Now, what airspace is this?
Class Charlie.
What equipment would I need to have if I wanted to operate inside this airspace?
You need a two-way radio, transponder, MOTI transponder, and a ADS-B out.
ADS-B out. Does your aircraft have ADS-B out?
I do, yep.
Awesome. What about in?
I think it's both, in and out.
Okay, so you can get traffic on like your iPad?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's pretty solid. What airspace is this?
That's Class Delta airspace.
All right. What is this little dot right here?
That one. Is that the VOR placement?
That is the VOR placement. That is where the VOR sits on the airport.
Okay.
Awesome. So you're going to Memphis, like Memphis International. This is a pretty big airport.
Right.
Be hilarious to actually ask to go in and land. They love it when Cessnas ask to land. So if I'm trying to get into this airspace, right, what do I need to hear from this controller to let me know that I can actually go into this airspace?
It would be Cessna 1234 clear into Bravo airspace.
Awesome. As a student pilot, can you do that?
Student pilot, they don't really. I mean, not really, unless you have a endorsement, but they don't want that anyway.
Yeah, they don't want student pilots there.
Well,
but you know, they may very well let you in. You know, if you ask nicely.
Depends. If it's not busy, then maybe they might.
Yeah. I had a student that wanted to shoot an approach into Phoenix Sky Harbor. You know, the big Phoenix airport.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, we spent the whole lesson doing it, but they let us do it.
That's nice.
Yeah. So I mean, sectional is pretty good. Let's dig into some weather. What are the different kinds, or not different kinds? What are the 3 stages of a thunderstorm?
Cumulus, and mature, and dissipating.
Cumulus, mature, and dissipating. Awesome. When am I going to experience the worst downdrafts of a thunderstorm?
The dissipating one.
The dissipating stage. How do I know that the mature stage of a thunderstorm has started?
When it starts raining or hits the ground.
Yep. When rain hits the ground. Let's open up Microsoft Paint. I'm going to draw a picture real quick. And I apologize. I did go to the Helen Keller School of Art. So if it's hard to, see what I'm drawing. All right. So I've got a thunderstorm that looks kind of like this, right? I'm seeing like clear blue skies over here. All right, this is just blue. All right. I'm seeing like a few like little dark clouds over here. And maybe just a little bit of rain. That's big rain.
Well, like hail.
Yeah, little bits of rain over here. Obviously, this is a thunderstorm, so there's lightning in it. Which side of this storm am I going to go on? This side or this side?
Out of those 2 options, I would have to pick the left side.
So the left side. Why are we not going over here?
Because that could, on the right side, it could have microbursts, which is very dangerous to especially smaller planes.
What is a microburst?
It's a downdrift wind that could drop you anywhere up to like 6,000 per minute.
So it's the difference between a downdraft and a microburst is the fact that a downdraft is localized and they exceed 6,000 feet per minute.
Okay.
Right. Can you climb at greater than 6,000 feet per minute?
No way.
No, right? So how far should I be avoiding the storm on this side? How far away should I avoid this storm?
Personally, I would want to stay away from any thunderstorm at least 30 miles.
Okay, at least 30 miles. 20 is kind of like the bare minimum. All right, awesome. What are the 3 different kinds of ice that could accumulate on an aircraft?
It's clear ice, rime ice, and mixed ice.
Okay. What kind of weather conditions would be most conducive to clear ice formation?
Freezing temperatures, and when it's raining, I guess.
Yeah, when it's like solid rain, like decent amount of rain, right?
Yeah. So when it hits the airplane, it would instantly, go into a solid form.
Yep. Now, what about rime ice? When is rime ice going to form?
That one is rime ice.
So that's
Not sure exactly.
That's that like milky stuff, right? The stuff that's kind of opaque and hard to see through.
Right.
That one's going to occur still freezing temperatures, right? But it's usually slightly colder than clear ice, and also mistier conditions as opposed to like solid thick raindrops.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm flying through like drizzle, fog, conditions you probably shouldn't be flying in as just a VFR pilot, that's where you're most likely going to start accumulating rime ice.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I'm looking at a high pressure and a low pressure, what are really the big differences when it comes to like weather and visibility? Like, which one of these is going to give me greater visibility, low or high pressure?
High pressure.
So which one of these is going to be more stable?
Also high pressure.
Okay, so high pressure is going to be more stable. Do I get greater visibility with more stable air or less stable air?
Sorry, less stable air is better visibility.
Okay, so which one of these is going to give me better visibility?
Low pressure.
As long as there's no obvious visual moisture, as long as there's no rain, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are these gray bars on this chart?
ISO bars.
Okay. So I see these ones that are really far apart, right? And these ones that are starting to get tighter together. The chart kind of gives you the answer, but why do I care on whether they're far apart or tight together?
The air pressure is more as they're tighter, close to each other.
Right.
Or more, I guess, turbulence. It's more windy, all that.
Yeah. So I have a greater pressure gradient. With a greater pressure gradient, I have a greater chance for weather.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What's this brown line right here?
Brown, I believe it's a trough.
It is a trough. What is a trough?
Trough is, I believe, that comes off of a low pressure flow, I guess.
So it's a line of low pressure, right? So this one's a little bit easier to identify as a trough. You see, it's just low all the way down the coast of California.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Solid. Why am I going to use this chart? Like, when would you look at this chart?
If you're traveling at least, a couple days out, you can look at it. Depend on where you're traveling to. If you're traveling far, kind of give you an idea. Hey, in the next 12 hours or 48 hours, this is what the weather will be like on the way. So you can kind of make a go no go decision.
I love it. Let's go look at a TAF. Yeah, I'm happy with that. There's a lot going on there. Is there anything currently being observed in Memphis that would give you concern?
Currently, let's see. Light rain shower.
Okay. Is that what's currently being observed? So we've got. Is this the current Zulu time right now? It probably is, isn't it?
What time is it? 2:13 p.m. So it should be 6 or 18. Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
From 18 Zulu to 21. So yeah.
So what's the difference between these two? This one's a METAR, and then this one's a TAF. Which one of these is an observation, and which one of these is a forecast?
The top one is an observation. The bottom is the forecast.
Okay, so I just want to make sure. Listen to the exact question that was being asked, right? Is there anything currently being observed that would give you concern in Memphis? Did I say, was there anything currently forecast that would give you concern?
No, it would be.
Yep. All right.
Exactly.
So I just want to, drill in the point. Yes, you did notice that around this time, there was forecast for light showers.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Not bad there. Just make sure, listen to the exact question the DPE asks. If they're asking for you to check the observation and they've given you more information than just an observation, just read the observation. Right.
Okay. I don't know. I don't see anything concerning currently.
Yep. I don't see anything concerning. And the way I'd even answer that question is like, do you see anything like currently observed? Like, hey, there's nothing in the METAR. There's nothing in the observation that would give me concern for the flight today, but I see during the time that we're going to be flying, I'm looking at some light rain showers, 6 mile visibility. It's not great. It's still VFR, but that's outside of my personal minimums or blah, 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 blah. Right.
Gotcha.
Right. But we've got, what's kind of the worst weather that might be forecast?
Worst weather. Let's see. Oh, all the way at the bottom, light thunderstorm.
Yeah, so there's a light thunderstorm. Now, is that thing definitely going to happen?
Probably.
So what's that prob 30 mean?
No. Prob 30. That's something I have not seen before. I've seen the tempo.
So prob 30, well, what prob is the probability of it happening.
30%.
Yes, there's a 30% chance between 19 and 2400 Zulu, 6 mile visibility with light thunderstorms, overcast, cumulonimbus at 3500.
Okay.
All right. Not bad. That was a pretty complicated one, though. Not gonna lie. I'm just gonna do this. So if I've got a wind and temp, a loft reading that looks like this, and what would be my wind velocity and direction?
The direction would be, what is that? So you have to subtract 50 from the first one.
Do I?
No, sorry. No, sorry. This is not over 100 knots winds. So it's coming from 200 degrees at 32 knots. The temperature is 12 degrees.
Okay, now what if I saw one like this? What would be the wind velocity and direction?
So this is where you have to subtract it. So it would be winds coming from 220 at 122 knots at degrees temperature.
Solid. I am happy with your weather knowledge and resource usage. Let's get into some airworthiness and privileges and limitations, and looks like aeromedical, and that might be about it so far. There's been like a few questions where we just kind of had to clean up the answer, but it wasn't necessarily wrong. So far, pretty dang solid. I'm not gonna lie, pretty dang solid. So let's get into airworthiness. What documents do you need to have in your airplane for it to be airworthy?
So I remember airworthiness certificate, then registration. If you're traveling internationally, then you need the radio communication as well. Then owners, POH, any placards if the aircraft requires, and weight and balance.
Okay.
And if you have any STCs, you can also, you would need those.
You need the supplements for those STCs. Awesome. Now, that weight and balance, is that like the weight and balance calculation that you do, or is there another sheet of paper that needs to be in the airplane?
It's the one that comes from the airplane, the basic empty weight.
Awesome. That airworthiness certificate, is there anything that would cause that thing to be invalid?
Yeah, if it's not maintained properly or the maintenance is not done on time, you're not following any airworthiness directives, that are supposed to be done.
Okay. What maintenance needs to be done in a certain time frame? Like what are the things I need to accomplish with an airplane to make sure that it stays airworthy?
So you need to do annual every 12 calendar months. Then you can do a VOR inspection, which is every 30 days for IFR flights. 100-hour inspection if it's for a hire. Then Aviate, so transponder, you also need inspection for that. ELTS, altimeter, static system.
Awesome. So the only thing a lot of students, they go straight to that 88 acronym and they just rattle off the entire thing, right? And sure, if you get all of these inspections done, there is nothing that is going to make that. There's nothing that's dangerous about it, right? But what it does show is it shows kind of a rote level of understanding of what's required for an airplane to stay airworthy. Which again, if you accomplish this, you're just spending more money, like that, right? And if you got money like that, have at it. The question was, what do I need to accomplish to keep my airworthiness certificate valid? I need an annual, altimeter, and an ELT. And an ELT is even the ELT is on its actual requirement of its inspection. If you plan on staying within 50 miles of the airport and only using it for flight instruction, then an ELT isn't even really required. Right? So I need an annual, altimeter, and an ELT is really all I need for an airplane to stay airworthy. Now, for me to operate in, airspace, for me to continue to operate the way that the airplane is operating, yes, annual VOR, 100-hour, altimeter, torpedostatic system, transponder, ELT. And now let's say you walked out to this airplane and you noticed that the ELT was just on. Can you just turn the switch off and then go fly?
No, because you don't know how long it's been on.
Okay.
Well, if it's been in use for 1 hour cumulative, you kind of have to change it. Or if it has passed its 50% of its lifespan, then of course you have to change that too.
Okay. So let's say you and a buddy go and buy an airplane and you start a flying club. Okay. Where people can pay $50 to join the club, and then they have to pay $100 an hour to use that airplane. Does this airplane need a 100-hour inspection?
If they're using it without it, no, because they're using it. We're not providing any instruction in it.
Awesome. So let's say somebody brings an instructor and they want to receive instruction in your club's airplane, and y'all are like, yeah, sure, don't care. We'll learn in it. Does this airplane now need a 100-hour inspection?
It's for a hire, so yes.
So the airplane's not for hire. The instructor is for hire. So that's kind of the big difference. If you, as the club owner, says, hey, I have an instructor, this is the instructor you will use for this airplane, yes, you need a 100-hour inspection, because that's a flight school. For all intents and purposes, that is a flight school. But if you have a flying club and people bring instructors to the club to teach in it, as long as you aren't limiting the usage of outside instructors, not a flight school. It is just somebody paying an instructor to teach them in an airplane they happen to rent.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
Awesome. So you walked out to this airplane and its attitude indicator is busted. Is this airplane airworthy?
Attitude, yeah. It is still.
All right. I mean, we've got to do a couple things before we can call it airworthy, right? What are those things we need to accomplish?
Well, I was still looking to 91213 and 91205. Make sure it's not one of those list items.
Okay.
If it's not on there, then go back to 91213. Check if it's any of the requirements. My airplane doesn't have any MEL, but if there is any kinds of KOELs.
Kinds of operation equipment list. Yep.
Operations, yeah. Or if the STC requires it, then, obviously it would not be airworthy. But if it's not also in there, then yes, you would be. But you still have to, I think, mark it, say, it's inoperative.
Awesome. Now, let's say that it's a radio that's broken. 91213 says that the item must be disabled and placarded.
Mm-hmm.
How must it be disabled? Like, what needs to be done for this radio to be disabled?
Pull the circuit breaker, and then a what? And then you can zip tie around it so no one can push it back in by accident.
Awesome.
And also have a sticker or a placard on that say, hey, this item is not working. It's inoperative.
All right. Now, can you, as a private pilot, pull a circuit breaker? that's not associated with a checklist?
As certain things we can do preventive maintenance of this. Yeah, you can, I would say.
Does this count as preventative maintenance?
Not exactly, but
I mean, sure, layman's me, like, yeah, I look at that and I think that's preventative maintenance. It prevents my airplane from burning to the ground. But there's a SAFO out there that the FAA actually put out that pretty much says if it's not associated with a QRH, a POH, or a checklist, it's a maintenance item. Okay. Pulling a circuit breaker and disabling a system is a maintenance item.
All right.
The reason is you don't know what else might be on that circuit breaker.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right. I've got a circuit breaker in my airplane labeled radio. It's my ADS-B out. Right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, as a pilot,
then not to touch it.
Yeah, you got to go find a mechanic. Is really it. You got to find the mechanic to be like, hey, my radio's broken. Requires a logbook entry.
Okay.
All right. So, let's say congratulations. You passed your private pilot certificate. What are you allowed to do now that you couldn't do before?
I can carry passengers. I can do flights with a prorated share. I can also fly for charity. I can fly as a salesperson with 200 hours. I believe that's all I can remember. Yeah. So you could also do like search and rescue missions. Yeah. Right. That too.
Solid. Now, let's say you got your private pilot certificate and then money's tight, let's just say money's tight. I don't know your bank account, but you end up not flying for like 6 months. What do you need to do before you can carry passengers again?
If it's a day flight, then I would need to do 3 takeoffs and 3 landings. If it's a night flight, then I would do the same thing, but the night landings to a full stop.
Okay. Now let's say you go on past your private pilot and you jump right into multi-engine. And it has been 6 months since you have flown a single engine airplane, but you just took your multi-engine check ride. Can you go take somebody back up in a Cessna or a single engine airplane? Because you've been training? No, right? Because it needs to be the same category and class.
Yep.
Right. I know multi-engine, you're like, it's still an airplane. It can't be that much different. But all right, let's say you're doing a nice little airport appreciation day and you're just hanging out at the airport, sweeping up a hangar or something. I don't know, hanging out with your local EAA chapter. And somebody approaches you saying, hey man, you're a pilot. Do you mind if we just like split the cost and you fly me out to Texas? Is this legal?
I can't do that. No, it's not for a common purpose, so I cannot do that.
Now let's say you are already going to Texas and somebody's like, hey man, you mind if I jump along with you? Is that okay?
Then yes, because I was already going there.
Yep, you were already going. Solid. I love it. Let's say, you're cruising along. You ended up going to Texas. You landed at a Charlie airport. When you turn the ATIS on as you're going to that Charlie airport, what kind of weather are you listening for to make sure it's legal for you to operate there?
It's for me at least, it would be 3 miles visibility with 1,000 feet above, 500 feet below clouds, and 315 to 2,000 horizontally.
Awesome. We already talked about what equipment you need, but let's say you landed in Texas at this airport. You went and did, your common purpose, whatever it happens to be. And then you come back, ceilings have dropped down to 1,500 feet to 1.5 mile visibility. With some rain nearby, is there anything that you could do to leave, or are you stuck at this airport until this rain clears up?
I can request for a special VFR.
Okay. What does special VFR drop your visibility minimums down to?
I believe it's 1 statute mile.
Okay. And how far do you need to stay away from clouds?
1 statute mile. I think clear clouds.
It's 1 statute mile and clear of clouds. Let's get in. We talked a little bit about hypoxia, right? We talked about hypemic hypoxia. We understand it's the inability of oxygen to carry blood because something else is bound to it, right? Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Carbon monoxide. Yep.
What are the other types of hypoxia?
It's a hypoxia. We said hypemic, stagnant, and histotoxic, I believe.
It is. Can you give me an example of stagnant hypoxia not related to G forces?
It could be for, let's say, we're traveling for a long period of time. If we're just sitting in one position, that could possibly be a stagnant hypoxia where blood is not really flowing properly.
Yep. In a Cessna, it's not as big of a deal because, they step out onto the ground. You start flying some low wing airplanes, they step up, to try and get out of the airplane, pass out and crack their skull on your wing.
Wow.
Awesome. Now, who might you be concerned? Like if you had some buddies, right, that wanted to go flying with you, what kind of history might make you concerned of their possibility of getting histotoxic hypoxia?
If they use any sort of drugs or alcohol.
Yep. Drugs, alcohol, smoking, exposure to toxic chemicals.
Smoking. That too.
Like veterans who were exposed to the burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When is it required for you as a crew member to start using oxygen?
As a crew member, if you're above 12,500 for cumulative of 30 minutes, then you need it. Awesome. Then next level is 14,000. All the crew member needs it. And then at 15,000, every crew member needs it, and also readily available for passengers. Awesome. Provided for passengers.
What? Do you have a first class medical?
No, mine's third class.
Third class. Okay. And you're just flying recreationally. What is the other option of a medical for you, given that you're using a third class and you're just doing this kind of recreationally for now?
Mm-hmm.
What is
you can do basic med.
What is basic med?
You can get basic med, I think, if you held a first, second, or third class after, I believe, 2006. I don't know the exact month, but I think it's valid for 48 calendar months. Can't carry more than 5 passengers, 6 including yourself. There's a weight limit, I think, for a plane, 6,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can only fly in the United States. And then there's a altitude limit, I can't remember, 8,000 feet maybe?
18,000.
18, okay. That's all I can remember for that.
All right, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? The FAA reauthorization bill has changed some of these restrictions, so next year there's going to be some changes, so we'll take a look at them.
Okay.
All right, but everything you said so far is correct before the changes are implemented. I'm going to be honest, you're pretty solid. There's just a few answers we had to clean up. I wouldn't have any issue. If you were my student, I wouldn't have any issue signing you off for the knowledge portion of a check ride.
Awesome.
All right. Good luck. Do you have any questions? Anything that you're concerned about? Any kind of subjects where you're just like, I'm not too sure about that?
Nothing I can really think of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of basic stuff, I kind of had an idea, but like you said, I need to clean up my answer a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I need to work on that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is like maybe some of these answers, this might be the first time you've like verbalized it. Yeah.
Mostly just reading it and listening.
And that gets a lot of students is like the first time they've actually been asked to like say these things out loud is on their check ride, and then they kind of fumble through their answers, right?
Yeah.
So if you said you got family's more important, so I'm assuming there's family around. Tell them about the airplane. Tell them about stuff, even if they don't give a shit. Just talk to them about it, right?
All right.
I know they might hate you for it, but here's the thing: they'd rather you pay for your check ride once than twice, right? They're expensive.
That's true. They are. I was surprised when I heard my number.
What are they charging now, if you don't mind me asking?
He said 1,000, and then if he's flying here, it's going to be additional 300 for travel expenses.
Holy crap! God, I need to be a DPE. That's good money. Not
I mean, I could fly to the airport over there. I was looking at the calculation and the time. If I rent the plane, it kind of adds up to the same thing. And
Yeah.
I'd rather have them just fly to the airport that I'm more comfortable in anyway. So better chances. At least I know the area more.
Yeah. And you know what? That's not a bad play. Just pay the travel fee and get your check ride done. I know my seaplane check ride, airplane usage and everything, I think it was $1,400.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah. around there.
Well, good luck. Have you ever used Discord before, or you understand what's going on in here?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so you see the aviation section right there. There's that check ride gouge channel. So come back, tell us how it went.
Okay.
You know, so that I can keep these things up to date, so that I can keep these things current, and as accurate to an actual check ride as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's on September 28th. So I had to do it on the weekend because that's the only my schedule allows for my work.
Yep.
And I only train on weekends too, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So instead of doing like hour to hour, I usually do 4-hour session.
Wow.
Kind of get that in there.
Well, good luck. Let me know. You know, reach out if you've got any other questions. There's a couple other flight instructors in here as well. They're blue. Their names in the Discord channel are blue. So you know, if somebody in red answers a question, they're a student pilot. So kind of do what you will with that.
Don't trust it fully.
Yeah. But good luck, man. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the rest of your day.
All right. You too.
Bye.